The first time I knew something was off was the day I received the phone call. It wasn't from her. It wasn't from anyone I knew. It was from an unknown number, a faceless voice on the other end of the line that would alter the course of everything I thought I knew about my life. The voice was calm, almost too calm. "Your wife's been busy lately," it said, in a tone that lacked any real emotion, as if it was simply stating a fact. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank. Maybe a wrong number, a telemarketer messing with me. But then the voice went on. "She's meeting someone, more than just friends. She thinks you don't know, but I think you do." I froze. The words didn't make sense. My brain struggled to connect them with the woman I married. Rachel had always been loving, committed, honest. At least, I thought she had been. We never had issues. Sure, like any marriage, we had our dull moments, our dry spells, but I never suspected something like this. "Who is this?" I finally managed to ask, my throat dry. "What are you talking about?" There was a brief silence. Then the voice answered, flat and emotionless. "You'll find out soon enough. Just wanted to give you a heads up." And then, without any further words, the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, trying to make sense of it all. Was it a joke? Some cruel game? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't just brush it off. The voice sounded too sure, too familiar with things I hadn't even noticed. My thoughts turned dark as I replayed the words over and over. She's meeting someone. My wife, Rachel, had always been someone I trusted. Was this a betrayal? Or just someone messing with my head? I didn't confront her immediately. No, I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. I needed evidence, something concrete. But my mind kept spiraling. What if it was true? What if my entire life was a facade? For days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Rachel's routine had barely changed. She still worked long hours, still came home with that same tired smile. But the distance had begun to grow between us. I noticed it more clearly now. She was absent, even when she was there. There were moments when I'd reach for her hand, and she'd pull away ever so slightly. Little things, but they all added up. But the worst part? It was the fact that I wasn't sure if I wanted to know the truth. I wasn't sure I could handle it. I was afraid that if I started looking, I might never stop. Then, for days later, something happened that forced my hand. I came home early from work, something I almost never did. The house was quiet, too quiet. I was used to the soft hum of the TV, the distant sound of her typing away on her computer, but today, it was eerily still. I checked the kitchen first, then the living room, but no sign of Rachel. My heart started to race, and my mind filled with every dark thought I had tried to suppress. I went upstairs, moving slowly, cautiously. I had no real reason to be paranoid, but the phone call, the voice, the sudden coldness in our marriage, it all weighed on me like an anchor. I pushed open the bedroom door, but it wasn't the sight of Rachel that stopped me. It was the smell. A faint, unfamiliar scent clung to the air. Not hers. Something floral, sweet. I didn't recognize it, but I knew instantly it wasn't something she wore. My pulse quickened. I turned to the bed and froze. There, on the nightstand, was her phone. It was lying there, face up, the screen lighting up as a notification came through. It was a text, just a single message, but it was enough to make my blood run cold. I didn't need to read it. I didn't need to see who it was from. The name was right there at the top of the screen. Luke. Now, Luke. I knew a few Lukes. But this one I didn't recognize. The message read, "Can't wait for tonight. Same time, same place." My mind exploded. My stomach churned. The world around me felt like it was collapsing in on itself. I had seen enough. My worst fears were staring me in the face. I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to march downstairs, confront her, scream, demand answers. But another part of me just wanted to disappear. I wasn't sure if I could face what was coming. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and left the house. I didn't know where I was going or why I felt like I had to leave, but the weight of what I had just discovered felt like it was too much to carry. As I walked down the street, every step felt like I was walking away from everything I thought I knew. The phone call, the text, the strange scent in the air, they were all pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. But no matter how much I tried to avoid it, the truth was calling. And sooner or later, I knew I'd have to face it. Little did I know, that phone call was just the beginning. The questions, the doubts, the shattered trust, they would only grow louder in the days that followed. and the answers I was searching for would change everything. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare. My mind kept replaying that text message, the name Luke, over and over. The image of Rachel's phone, lying on our nightstand, its screen lighting up with that single message, kept flashing in my mind. Can't wait for tonight. Same time, same place. Those words felt like they were carved into my brain, impossible to ignore. But the hardest part? I couldn't bring myself to confront her about it. I wasn't sure what I'd do if she admitted it. What if I asked, and she just smiled, laughed it off, and told me it was nothing? Or worse, what if I asked, and she confirmed every dark thought I'd been trying to push away? I knew I had to find out the truth. I couldn't go on living in a world where I wasn't sure what was real, but I didn't know how. So I waited. I watched. I became someone I didn't recognize, someone suspicious, paranoid, lurking in the background of my own life. Every time Rachel stepped out of the house, every time she answered a call, I was watching. I kept my distance, just enough to remain unnoticed, but close enough to see everything. But nothing happened. Not at first, anyway. Rachel went on with her daily routine as if nothing had changed. She woke up early, made breakfast, left for work, came home late. Every now and then, she'd call me. But there was something different in her voice. Something off. She was still sweet, still kind, but there was this layer of tension that hadn't been there before. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. One night, I was sitting in the living room, half watching the TV, when I heard her phone buzz. It was a soft, almost imperceptible sound, but it was enough to get my attention. I couldn't help myself. I got up and walked toward the phone, picking it up as carefully as I could, praying she wouldn't hear me. When I looked at the screen, my heart dropped. Another message from Luke. Don't forget what we talked about. We need to make this work. It's too late to back out now. The words hit me like a slap across the face. It was happening. She was seeing someone else. And it wasn't just a fling. This was real. This was something deep, something that had been going on for far longer than I'd been willing to admit to myself. My mind reeled. I could feel the anger rising in me, burning hotter by the second. How could she do this to me? How could she betray everything we had built together? I didn't know what to do with myself. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, smash it into pieces. But I didn't. Instead, I set it back down gently, as if nothing had happened. I didn't want her to know I'd seen the messages. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I waited for her to come home. The clock ticked louder than it ever had before, each second stretching into an eternity. When she finally walked through the door, she looked just the same as always. No hint of guilt in her eyes. No sign that she had any idea I knew the truth. Hey, babe, she said, smiling at me as she tossed her keys onto the counter. How was your day? I stared at her, the anger and confusion fighting for control inside me. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the same person who had texted Luke, wasn't the same woman who had betrayed me. Or at least, I tried to convince myself of that. But the truth was clear. She had changed. And I was stuck in this limbo, unable to turn away, unable to ask the question that would tear everything apart. I forced a smile. It was fine. Same old, you know? She didn't seem to notice anything was off, and why would she? I was so good at pretending everything was fine. I had done it for months, years even. But now, the cracks were beginning to show. And it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Later that night, as we lay in bed together, I couldn't help but notice the way Rachel shifted in her sleep. The way she seemed so distant, so unreachable. She had always been the one to curl up against me, to rest her head on my chest. But tonight, she stayed on her side of the bed, turned away from me. I knew she wasn't asleep. I could feel her body tense, the subtle movements that told me she was awake, but she didn't turn toward me. I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts spiraling. I thought about the phone call I had received, the messages from Luke, and the way Rachel had become so distant. I thought about the betrayal, the lies, and the secrets she had been keeping from me. I thought about the life we had built together, and how it was all starting to unravel. The silence between us was deafening. I didn't know how much longer I could take it. Something had to give. And soon. I had made up my mind. Tomorrow, I would confront her. I didn't care how much it hurt. I needed to know the truth. Because living in this limbo, unsure of everything, was tearing me apart. The question wasn't if I would confront her. The question was how. The next day came quickly, like a freight train bearing down on me, and I found myself standing on the edge of something I wasn't sure I could handle. I had never been the type to confront someone about anything, let alone the woman I loved. But there was no denying it anymore. There was no running away from the truth. I had seen the messages, heard the rumors, and felt the distance growing between us. And it had to stop. I waited until after dinner, when the house was quiet and Rachel was finishing up the dishes. She hummed softly, lost in her own world, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The light from the kitchen cast long shadows, and I couldn't help but notice how different she seemed. It wasn't just her demeanor that had changed, it was me. I had become someone else too, someone who was no longer afraid to look the truth in the eye, even if it meant everything I knew would shatter. I walked over to the counter where she was putting away the plates, my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't even the act of confronting her that terrified me. It was the thought that everything we had built, everything I thought was real, could come crashing down. But I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that nothing was wrong. "Rachel," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned to me, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of recognition. She knew something was different, but she smiled, that same practiced smile she had been giving me for weeks, and said, "What's up, babe?" My hands were shaking, but I didn't let her see it. I had to stay strong. This was it. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice steady but firm. "About everything. I know about Luke." Her face froze. The smile faded, and in its place was something I couldn't quite read. Guilt? Panic? Her eyes darted to the side, avoiding mine, and for the first time in months, I saw something I hadn't seen in her eyes before. Fear. "Jace, she started, but I cut her off. Don't lie to me, Rachel." I stepped closer, my heart racing. "I know what's been going on. The texts, the late nights, the secrecy. I know everything." The silence that followed felt like it stretched for miles. Rachel stood there, frozen, her hands gripping the dish towel so tightly her knuckles turned white. I waited, feeling the weight of the moment press down on both of us. I had no idea how this conversation would end, but I couldn't back down now. "Jace, please," she finally said, her voice shaking. "I didn't want you to find out like this." She paused, and I could see the struggle in her eyes. She wanted to say something, but the words were caught in her throat. "Don't tell me you were just friends with him, Rachel," I said, my voice sharp. "Because I'm not stupid. I know what's been going on. And you don't just accidentally get that close to someone." Her eyes filled with tears, and I saw the mask she had been wearing crack just slightly. "I never meant for it to happen," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted to hurt you. It was a mistake, Jace. But it's not what you think." I was already shaking my head. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "A mistake? You've been meeting him behind my back, sending texts like that, and it's just a mistake?" My voice broke, the anger and hurt bubbling up to the surface. "How long, Rachel? How long has this been going on?" She was crying now, her face crumpling with guilt. "It started a few months ago. I never planned for it to go this far. I didn't know what I was doing. I was confused. You and we started growing apart, and Luke, he was there for me. He listened when you didn't. And I was weak. I know it's no excuse, but I never meant to hurt you, Jace." I took a step back, my mind reeling. Weak? How could she say that? How could she justify this betrayal by saying she was confused? The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had given everything to, was now standing in front of me, explaining away her actions like they were nothing more than a series of bad choices. "You were confused?" I repeated, my voice cold. "So, you just fell into this? You just gave up on us without even trying to fix it?" Rachel nodded, her tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jace. I never meant for it to hurt you. I love you, I do, but I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if I can." For a moment, I stood there, trying to process everything she had just said. The weight of her words felt like they were suffocating me. She was sorry, but was that enough? Could I forgive her? Could I ever look at her the same way again? I shook my head, taking a deep breath to steady myself. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore, Rachel. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." The room was thick with tension, the silence between us heavy and oppressive. I could feel the walls closing in on me, the reality of the situation sinking in. I had been blind. I had trusted her completely, and now, everything felt like it had been a lie. I need space, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. I need to think. Rachel reached out to me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. She recoiled, her face crumpling in pain. But I didn't care. I couldn't care. I was too angry, too hurt. I needed distance. I needed time to figure out what came next, and I couldn't do that with her standing in front of me, asking for forgiveness that I wasn't sure she deserved. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, crying in the kitchen, a woman I no longer recognized. And as I left the house, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had learned, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The life we had built was over. The only question now was whether we could rebuild from the wreckage, or if it was too late. The night after the confrontation felt like I had been hit by a freight train. The raw, jagged edges of reality cut through me with every breath I took. I thought I would feel relief, some sense of closure, but all I felt was emptiness. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to handle what had just happened. I left the house that night, unable to stand the sight of Rachel's face, her tears, her broken words. And yet, as I walked down the dark street, the weight of it all settled in like a fog. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was lost. For the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. Who was I? Who had I been? The man who trusted, who believed in love. Or had I been nothing more than a fool, blind to everything happening right under my nose? Every memory of Rachel, every moment I thought we had shared, now seemed tainted. I couldn't escape the thought of Luke, the man who had taken my place in her life, who had given her what I no longer could, or what she believed I couldn't. I stayed at a hotel that night, renting a room in a haze of confusion. The bed felt too big without her next to me, but it was better than being home, facing the reality of the wreckage. I didn't sleep much. I couldn't. My mind was a whirlwind of questions, of scenarios I couldn't stop imagining. What had I missed? How had she changed so suddenly? And most importantly, why had she never told me? Why hadn't she trusted me enough to speak up before everything got so out of hand? I wanted answers, but there was no way to get them now. Not from Rachel. Not from anyone. I didn't call her the next day. I didn't want to hear her voice. I couldn't. I needed distance, time to think, to clear my head. But even in the silence, I kept thinking about what she had said. I never meant to hurt you. Those words echoed through my mind. Did she really mean that? Did she honestly believe that? Or was she just trying to ease the guilt, trying to make me believe there was some sort of innocence in her actions? By the time the second day rolled around, I knew I couldn't keep running from this. I had to face it, face her, face what we had become. I returned home, not sure what to expect. Rachel's car was parked in the driveway, but the house was quiet. Too quiet. It almost felt like a different house entirely. I stood there for a moment, just staring at the door, unsure if I was ready for whatever was on the other side. I finally opened the door and stepped inside, the familiar scent of home hitting me with a painful sting. Rachel was sitting on the couch in the living room, her eyes red and swollen from crying, but she was calm now. The panic in her voice from the previous night had subsided. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, we just stared at each other, neither of us knowing how to start. "I don't know what you want from me, Jace," she said quietly, her voice a little hoarse. "I'm so sorry. I don't even know how to fix this. I've made a huge mistake, but I can't take it back now." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. She was still apologizing, still begging for my forgiveness, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to give it. How could I? How could I ever trust her again? "I don't know if you can fix this, Rachel. I really don't," I replied, my voice steady but breaking. "You've broken something in me, something I don't think I can repair. You don't just betray someone like that and expect everything to go back to normal." She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I needed to say them. I needed her to understand the weight of what she had done. I needed her to understand that this wasn't something I could just brush aside. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a choice. A conscious decision to lie, to hide things, to be with someone else while pretending everything was fine with me. It was a betrayal of the worst kind. "I know," she whispered, looking down at her hands. "I can't undo it, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right if you'll let me. I love you, Jace. I never stopped loving you." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she had destroyed in me, how much she had shattered everything I had believed about us. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, feeling the walls closing in. I don't know if I can keep doing this, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. I don't know if I can forgive you, and I don't know if I even want to. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Rachel's tears started again, quietly falling down her face. But I didn't know what to do. How could I be the one to comfort her when she was the one who had hurt me? I wanted to be strong. I wanted to stand up for myself, to walk away from all of this. But I couldn't. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to believe in us, in the life we had shared. I think we need time, I finally said, my voice quieter now. We both need time. I can't make any decisions right now. Rachel nodded, her face crumpling with the weight of my words. I understand, she said, barely above a whisper. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I turned away then, unable to stay in the same room with her for a second longer. I walked to the door, the only thing I knew how to do in that moment. Walk away. As I stepped out of the house, I knew something had irrevocably changed. Maybe we could fix this, but I didn't know how. I didn't know if I even wanted to try. The pain was too fresh, too raw, and the trust one had once had was gone. Whether I stayed or left, everything had already been shattered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The days after our confrontation felt like a blur. I barely slept, barely ate. I spent most of my time pacing, sitting in silence, trying to gather my thoughts and figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I had made the decision to leave the house that night, but every time I thought about it, I kept asking myself, why didn't I just leave for good? It felt like I was stuck in this endless loop, an endless spiral of confusion, heartbreak, and regret. I had spent the better part of 5 years of my life with Rachel, trusting her, believing in our future, only to watch it unravel in the span of a few days. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the feeling of being completely and utterly invisible. All the signs had been there, all the subtle changes, but I had ignored them, convinced myself that things would go back to normal. But normal was gone, and I wasn't sure how to find my way back. The house felt cold and empty now. The walls seemed to be closing in on me every time I stepped through the front door. Rachel, despite her attempts to apologize, had become nothing more than a stranger to me. I tried to tell myself that I should feel sorry for her, that I should at least consider trying to work things out. But I didn't. There was something inside of me, something deep and instinctual, that told me there was no going back. This was the end, whether I wanted to accept it or not. But even though I felt this overwhelming certainty, the pain of it didn't make it any easier. I kept thinking about the woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew. How had she changed so completely? How had I missed it all? I was angry at myself as much as I was angry at her. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had to confront what had happened, confront the truth. I wasn't going to move forward unless I fully understood what had pushed Rachel to do this. I decided to meet her, face to face, without any walls between us. No more hiding, no more pretending. I needed answers. And I needed to ask the one question that had been gnawing at me for days. Why Luke? The day of the meeting, I drove to her apartment, feeling the weight of each mile as I made my way there. The drive was long, but my mind was still stuck in that same loop. I tried to imagine a future without her, but I couldn't picture it. I had been with Rachel through everything, the good and the bad. We had shared so many memories, so many moments that it seemed like they meant something. But now they just felt like empty echoes. When I got to her apartment, she was already waiting for me. Her face was tired, pale, like she hadn't slept in days, and I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. But it didn't last long. The truth was, I wasn't sure I was capable of feeling much for her anymore. Jace, she whispered when she saw me, her eyes immediately filling with tears. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. Part of me wanted to ask if she truly felt sorry, or if she was just saying what she thought I wanted to hear. But the other part of me already knew the answer. It didn't matter. There was no magic apology that could fix what had been broken. Why Luke? I finally asked, my voice tight, controlled. What was it about him that I couldn't give you? What did he give you that I couldn't? Rachel opened her mouth to respond, but for a long moment, she just stared at me, as though trying to find the words. I don't know how to explain it, she began, wiping away the tears that had fallen down her face. He was just there. He was easy to talk to. He listened in a way that you stopped doing. You started getting busy, Jace. And I I was lonely. I felt the anger flare inside me again. Lonely? So you just found someone else? That's the answer? You were lonely, so you went to someone else's arms? Rachel winced at my words, her shoulders shaking as she tried to hold herself together. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I planned it, Jace. But when things started to fall apart between us, when you started pulling away, I felt like I didn't have anyone. And Luke, he just kept showing up. He was a friend. And then, one night, it just happened. And I let it. I made a choice, and I hate myself for it. The honesty in her words was almost worse than the betrayal. She wasn't denying it. She wasn't making excuses. She was telling me the truth, her truth, at least. And it hurt more than anything I could have imagined. The idea that she had been so unhappy, that she had let it go this far without telling me. It felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I just didn't know how to fix things. You were changing, and I didn't know how to reach you anymore. So I found someone else who made me feel seen. I know it was wrong, Jace. I know it. The silence between us stretched for what felt like an eternity. My chest tightened as I tried to process everything she had said. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream, to make her feel the pain she had caused. But the truth was, I didn't know what to feel. Anger, yes. Pain, definitely. But also something else, something much darker. I felt a sense of finality, a realization that our love was gone, and there was no fixing it. I don't think I can do this anymore, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel's face crumpled, and she collapsed into the chair, her sobs filling the room. But I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. I didn't know how to. I didn't know if I even wanted to. I don't want to hurt you anymore, she choked out, her voice muffled by tears. But I love you, Jace. I always will. I don't know if I can love you anymore, I replied, the words tasting like poison on my tongue. And I'm not sure I can ever trust you again. The words felt final. I knew that nothing would ever be the same between us. And as I stood up to leave, I felt a piece of me break away. It was over, and there was no going back. Leaving Rachel's apartment was harder than I ever imagined. The door closed behind me with a finality I could physically feel. As my car pulled away from the curb, I found myself gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The weight of what had just happened hung over me, thick and suffocating. I had always thought that if I ever reached this point, if I ever had the courage to finally leave her, it would feel like a release, like freedom. But it didn't. It felt like drowning. Every breath, every thought, was heavy with the weight of the decisions I had just made. The truth was, I didn't feel liberated. I felt hollow. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation we'd just had. About her words. I love you, Jace. Those words haunted me, because deep down, I knew she meant them. But they meant nothing now. Not after everything that had happened. Not after everything she had done. The love we had once shared was gone, replaced with a bitter, unspoken understanding that there was nothing left between us but the ruins of our past. And I wasn't sure I could pick up the pieces. I tried to focus on the road, but the thoughts kept coming, flooding my mind, overwhelming me. How had I not seen it? How had I not recognized the distance growing between us? The signs were all there. The late nights, the secretive glances, the way she stopped sharing the small details of her day. And yet, I had ignored it all. I had convinced myself that everything was fine, that we were just going through a phase. But it was more than that. Rachel had already checked out long before I did, and by the time I realized it, it was already too late. I made my way to a small park near the outskirts of town, somewhere I used to go when I needed to clear my head. The quiet of the place was soothing, and for a moment, I could almost pretend that everything was okay. The leaves rustled softly in the breeze, the sound peaceful in contrast to the storm inside me. I parked the car and sat there for a while, staring out at the empty swings that swayed back and forth in the wind. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the ground, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of my own loneliness. But as the minutes ticked by, the emptiness grew more suffocating. I needed to make a decision. I couldn't keep running from this. I had to face the truth about myself, about Rachel, about everything. My mind kept drifting back to Luke, the man she had chosen, the man who had made her feel something I couldn't anymore. The thought of him, of her with him, made me feel sick. It was a constant loop, a relentless question that I couldn't shake. What did he have that I didn't? I couldn't answer that, not yet. But one thing was clear. Rachel had betrayed me, and I had let it happen. I had failed to protect what was ours. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces of my own broken heart. I took out my phone and stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the contact list. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want advice. But I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I needed someone to talk to, someone who might understand what I was going through. But who could I trust? Who would even want to listen to me after everything that had happened? My finger moved toward the name on the screen, and I hit call without thinking. It rang a few times before the voice on the other end answered. Jace. It was Matt, a close friend from work. I hadn't talked to him in weeks. Hey man, what's up? I almost laughed. What was up? What was up was the fact that my entire world had crumbled in the span of 48 hours. But I didn't say that. Instead, I just spoke, my voice shaky. I don't know, man. I'm really messed up right now. Jesus, what happened? Matt asked, his voice full of concern. What's going on? I leaned back in the car seat, taking a deep breath. Rachel, she's been seeing someone else. I found out a couple of days ago. She's been lying to me for months. And now I don't know what to do. There was a long pause on the other end. Shit, Jace. I don't even know what to say. I could hear the sympathy in his voice, but it only made me feel more isolated. I don't know what to do either, man. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. But I was wrong. It's like everything we had was a lie. Look, I don't have all the answers. But you've got to figure out what's best for you. If this is really over, if she's done, then you need to make sure you're not holding on to something that isn't there anymore. You're better than this, Jace. Better than this. The word stung. But maybe he was right. Maybe I was holding on to a ghost, to something that no longer existed. I was clinging to an illusion of what Rachel and I had, unable to let go because I was afraid of the unknown. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about her. This was about me. About facing the reality of who I was becoming. And about understanding that the hardest part of all this wasn't just accepting that Rachel had betrayed me. It was accepting that I had let it happen. Thanks, man, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to figure this out. I don't even know where to start. Matt's voice softened. Take it one day at a time. That's all you can do right now. And when you're ready, you know where to find me. We hung up after that, and I sat in the car for a while longer, watching the sky turn darker with each passing minute. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, or if I was even ready to face it. But I knew one thing. This was a turning point, a crossroads in my life. And no matter how painful it was, I had to choose which direction I was going to take. I could keep living in the past, keep holding on to the remnants of a love that was no longer real, or I could face the future, even if it was terrifying. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was the only one left. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was ready to walk it. The days that followed felt like a war within myself. Every moment I spent not thinking about Rachel felt like a small victory, but it was a constant battle. There were moments when I felt numb, and then there were moments when the anger came rushing back, hot and overwhelming. I didn't know how to process it all, but I did know that I couldn't keep pretending like nothing had happened. I couldn't keep walking through life with this gnawing feeling in my chest, the weight of betrayal hanging over me like a storm cloud. It wasn't even just about Rachel anymore. It was about me, about the person I had become. I looked at myself in the mirror some nights and didn't recognize the man staring back at me. I had let her in, completely. I had trusted her in ways I had never trusted anyone before, and she had shattered that trust so completely that I wasn't sure I could ever put the pieces back together. The question kept echoing in my mind. Why wasn't I enough? I had tried to move forward. I had tried to throw myself into work, into anything that would distract me from the overwhelming pain. But it didn't work. The distractions only lasted for so long before I found myself back in the same place. Back to the house. Back to memories that wouldn't leave me alone. I'd find myself walking around, touching things we'd picked out together, pieces of our life that now felt foreign and broken. The photos on the walls, the couch where we'd watched our favorite shows, the kitchen where we'd spent so many hours cooking together. It was all suffocating me. Every time I passed by something, I felt like it was taunting me, reminding me of the love I had lost, the love I had been blind to. But as much as I hated feeling like this, I also knew I couldn't just stay in this limbo forever. I couldn't keep pretending like I wasn't haunted by what had happened. I needed closure. And the only way to get it was to face Rachel. I reached out to her, something I never thought I would do after everything. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe some final words of explanation, maybe even an apology that didn't feel as hollow as the one she had given before. Maybe I was just craving a moment of peace, some closure to end this constant ache. I didn't know if I wanted to forgive her or if I wanted to finally let her go for good, but either way, I knew that I needed to see her one last time. We agreed to meet at the same park where I had gone to clear my head a few days before. It was a place I had found solace in, a place where I could breathe without feeling completely suffocated by everything that had happened. Rachel arrived a few minutes before me, and when I saw her, my heart wrenched. She was standing by the swings, her head down, her arms crossed over her chest. The familiar woman I had married seemed so distant now, as if she had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Her face was pale, tired, but there was a vulnerability in her posture that I had never seen before. I walked toward her slowly, my steps heavy with the weight of the moment. When she looked up and saw me, her face crumpled in an instant, her eyes brimming with tears. "Jace," her voice was strained, almost desperate. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." I stood there for a moment, not sure what to say. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, pain, confusion, but at the same time, there was this strange emptiness. How had I gotten here? How had we gotten here? "Rachel," I finally said, my voice rough. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel anymore. I don't know what you want me to say." I shook my head, the frustration welling up inside me. I've been trying to understand it, trying to make sense of everything, but I can't. She stepped closer to me, her voice shaky but pleading. "I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for it to go this far. It was a mistake, and I know that's not enough. But I love you, Jace. I never stopped. Please, I know I've destroyed everything, but I need you to know that I was wrong. I just didn't know how to fix things between us." I looked at her, my heart breaking all over again. "You think telling me you love me changes anything now? You think telling me it was a mistake is supposed to fix what you've done?" She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just tired. Tired of trying to find answers in a situation that had no clear explanation. Tired of holding on to something that had already slipped away from me. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Rachel. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way anymore." Her shoulders slumped, the tears beginning to fall again. "I don't want forgiveness, Jace. I don't expect you to ever look at me the same way. But I need you to know that what we had was real. I still want to be with you. I still want to fix this." My heart clenched. The love I had once felt for her was still there, buried deep beneath the layers of hurt, but it felt distant now. It felt like a dream, a memory I couldn't quite touch. And that's when it hit me. The hardest part wasn't her betrayal. It wasn't even the lies. The hardest part was realizing that the person I thought I knew, the woman I had built my future with, was someone I no longer recognized. "Rachel," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can keep going through this, trying to fix something that's already broken beyond repair." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Jace, please, don't do this." But I knew it was too late. The love we once had been fractured beyond what either of us could fix. And even though part of me still wanted to believe in us, part of me knew it was over. I couldn't keep holding on to something that was already gone. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "but I have to let you go." The words hung in the air between us, final and heavy. I turned and walked away without looking back. My heart was shattered, but I knew it was the right choice. I had to move on, no matter how much it hurt. The future wasn't going to be the same, but I couldn't keep living in the past, drowning in the remnants of what we had. And as I walked away, I realized that I was finally free. Free to heal, free to rebuild my life, free to face the unknown with the strength I didn't know I had. The days after that final conversation with Rachel felt like a strange kind of rebirth. It wasn't easy. It wasn't like flipping a switch and suddenly feeling okay. But I could feel something shifting in me, something deep inside. The ache in my chest, the heavy weight of betrayal, was still there, but it wasn't as suffocating as it had been. I realized that the hardest part wasn't leaving Rachel or even confronting her. It was learning how to let go. Letting go of the life I had built with her, of the future I had imagined. But once I did, it was like the fog started to lift. I spent a lot of time alone after that, thinking, reflecting, and healing. I found myself rediscovering parts of myself that I had forgotten. I started picking up old hobbies again, things I used to love before I became so consumed by the relationship. I went for runs in the mornings, something that always cleared my head. I started cooking again, experimenting with new recipes, and enjoying the solitude of my own kitchen. I read books I'd always meant to get to but never had the time for. It wasn't just about distraction, it was about rediscovery, about finding who I was when I wasn't defined by someone else's presence. I also reconnected with friends I had neglected over the years. Matt, who had been there when I needed him most, became a close companion again. We spent weekends hiking, grabbing beers at our favorite dive bar, talking about everything and nothing. There was something healing in the simple act of just being, not pretending everything was okay, but accepting that it wasn't. And that was okay. But the most surprising part of all this? I realized that I wasn't just healing. I was growing. I was starting to appreciate my own company again, something I hadn't done in far too long. I wasn't dependent on anyone else to define my worth. I had spent so many years pouring into a relationship that I had forgotten to pour into myself. Now, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was coming back to life. Months went by, and though the wounds of the past still stung from time to time, they weren't as raw as they had been. I found myself laughing again, genuinely. I found joy in the little things, in the quiet moments of my day. I wasn't searching for answers anymore. I had stopped looking backward and started looking forward. And then, one evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I met someone new. Her name was Emma. We met by chance, at a small coffee shop I'd been frequenting more often. We started talking over a spilled cup of coffee. Her fault, of course, but we laughed about it. And just like that, the conversation flowed effortlessly. She was kind, intelligent, and funny. We had a lot in common, but what struck me most was the ease of it all. There was no pressure, no rush. It was refreshing. We began to see each other more frequently. Dinners, walks in the park, spontaneous trips to local museums. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. Not because she was filling the space left by Rachel, but because she wasn't. She was simply adding something beautiful to my life, something that wasn't defined by the shadows of the past. It was new. It was different, and it felt real. I still thought about Rachel from time to time, and I always would. What we had was significant, and I would never forget it. But I realized that life wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about learning from it, growing because of it, and allowing yourself to open up to new possibilities. And that's exactly what I did. Looking back now, I can honestly say that everything I went through, as painful as it was, brought me to where I am today. I learned who I was outside of a relationship. I learned to trust myself again, to trust that I was worthy of love, happiness, and peace. I no longer felt like I was defined by someone else's actions or decisions. I was me, whole, independent, and strong. And when Emma and I eventually took that next step, when we talked about what the future might look like together, I realized that love wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace, but this time, it was going to be on my terms. It was going to be built on mutual respect, honesty, and a deep understanding of who we were, both as individuals and as partners. The journey had been long, and there had been moments when I thought I wouldn't make it. But here I was, standing on the other side, stronger, wiser, and more hopeful than I had ever been. I wasn't running from the past anymore. I was walking toward a future filled with endless possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited about what was to come. It wasn't just about healing from betrayal. It was about reclaiming myself, my life, and the love I deserved. And I was ready for it.